Hello, welcome back to my channel. If you're watching this, it's probably not the type of content that you're expecting. And because of that, I will be deleting this video in 24 hours. But let's get into why we're here. I'm going to be talking about Paul Bernardo and Karla Homolka. And this is a quick presentation, brief, about 15 slides of how they were caught, and this is based on a research paper that I've already written about them. Here's just a little background on Paul and Karla. Paul was born in Scarborough, Canada on August 27th, 1964 to his parents, Kenneth and Marilyn Bernardo. And this was as the result of an affair with Marilyn's ex-boyfriend. And Paul's crime started as petty. He started setting fires with his friends as a child. Shortly after, a few years, he met his first love, Nadine Brammer. This is debated to be where his descent began. This is where people believe that his mind started to change. And this was after he learned that Kenneth was not his real father. He would refer to his mother as a slut or a whore, which again completely changed his outlook on women. And this was further exacerbated when Kenneth was found out to be a pervert. He was a peeping Tom. And since Paul was already obsessive with control, this only made it worse. Paul's girlfriends were not strangers to psychological abuse and gaslighting. Nadine Brammer was the first of many. He did the usual abuse you see in some households. He had to control every aspect of her life. He would tell her what to wear, who to hang out with, and basically he controlled everything she did. When it became too much, she decided to leave him. After that, Paul met Carol. He continued to date her even after plenty of one-night stands with other women. Now, he was still as abusive, and even started seeing another woman while still with Carol. That woman's name was Susie. Even when they both found out about each other, both found out that they were dating Paul, were seeing Paul, were being abused by Paul, having sex with Paul, it didn't matter. They still stayed with him. And this definitely leads into that cycle of abuse where they begin to believe that they deserve it. And that's what's happening here. They both believe that they're supposed to be with Paul and that whatever he's doing to them, they deserve it and they should just take it. Eventually, he had a restraining order filed against him for obscene calls to his friend Van's ex-girlfriend in the summer of 1986. The same thing happened when he started the calls with Carol. Carol also filed a restraining order against him. A few years, not even a few years. I think this was the same year. He then got a job in accounting. And he met a woman named Jennifer Thompson, whom he also dated. She threatened to go to the police, and his dating life came to a halt. This is assumably because of his abuse, his threats, his obscene phone calls, that Jennifer Thompson would even consider going to the police. Shortly after that, the Scarborough rapes began. Now, the first rape that we know of, the first successful attack, was at 1 a.m. on May 4th, 1987. Now, this was a 21-year-old woman that was exiting a bus near her house, and she was raped near her home. The attack happened near her home, which you'll see a pattern throughout these other attacks. You'll definitely see a pattern. Obviously, it'll escalate to the highest degree, but there's still an overall pattern. And this was only the first of 24 successful / attempted sexual assaults that took place in Scarborough. Only 10 days after the first attack, Paul attacked another woman on May 14th, 1987. Then, he escalated and raped a younger girl, 19, in front of her family's home. This time it wasn't near, this time it was directly in front of the home. The next attack, his third attempted rape, was not successful. Paul attempted to subdue and rape this girl, but she was able to fight him off. She fought back, and he ran. So, Paul used the same exact methods for each attack. He would stalk them, wait for them to get off at their stop, then follow them and rape them near where they live. And he would do this for every attack. Well, as you'll see, he did it for every single one of his attacks. Now, after Paul failed to complete his last attack, he took a break. As you know, most serial killers, serial rapists, murderers, they have a cooldown period, a time where they're not committing any crime. Now, he met up with his best friend Van, who introduced him to Karla Homolka and Debbie Purdy. Now, the night Paul met Karla, they engaged in sex, and uncharacteristic of Paul, he then acquired her phone number and home address. Now, this was not normal for Paul, because normally when he met a woman and started dating her, he didn't care where she lived, didn't care about her number. All he cared about was controlling them, so this was strange. Now, he started seeing Karla multiple times. He would meet her often throughout the weeks. And eventually, he leaned back into the cycle of abuse that he always abided by in his relationships. He would start with clothing, hairstyle, looks. He would call her fat, ugly, and stupid, to the point that she wrote a note to remind herself that she was, and to always be good to him no matter what he did. She actually wrote a note saying, "Remember, you're fat, you're ugly, you're stupid. And at the end, I don't even know why I tell you these things. You'll never change." Now, about 30 days, a month after his relationship with Karla, he successfully attacked and raped a younger 15-year-old girl at a bus stop again near her home. Now, Paul had been committing these attacks all while seeing Karla. Or he'd been contemplating doing more attacks all while seeing Karla, and eventually he asked her. He just straight up said, "Hey, is it okay if I want to rape other women? Is it okay if I rape women? If I have sex with women forcibly other than you?" And surprisingly, she said yes, which led to a string of attacks where Karla would watch while Paul raped someone. Now, Karla became a willing participant. She knew about the attacks, and eventually Paul became interested in Karla's 15-year-old sister, Tammy Homolka. First it was just looking, then it escalated quickly to sneaking into her room and masturbating over her as she slept. Big jump. Karla noticed this, and so it stated that she broke the blinds in Tammy's room to allow Paul to have easier access, to be able to get in and get out without anyone noticing. And also, the next day, she crushed up Valium, put it in Tammy's food to knock her out. Now, Karla then, before doing the Valium and drugging her, she stole the drug halothane from a clinic that she worked at. Now, this drug is severely deadly if not used correctly. And it was proven deadly to Tammy. Now, Paul then began to rape Tammy in the basement, and Karla filmed it. Eventually, after Karla had placed a cloth with halothane on it over Tammy's nose to subdue her even longer, during the rape, Tammy began to vomit uncontrollably, and from there she choked on her own vomit and died. Karla is suspected to have given her an overdose of the drug halothane that she stole from work. However, the death was ruled accidental. And here you can see a picture of Tammy Homolka, age 15. There you go. And there are two other murders that we know of in the Paul Bernardo and Karla Homolka killing spree, essentially. And those two are Leslie Maffey and Kristen French. And here again are photos of the victims. There's Kristen French on the left there, and Leslie on the right. If it's reversed in the video, that's a problem with YouTube. Photos are the same, don't worry about the text, that's why I'm here to narrate it. Okay. Now we're going to first talk about Leslie Maffey. Now, Leslie was 14 when she was kidnapped. This time it was a kidnapping. Leslie was not stalked. She was not stalked after getting off of a bus stop. This was completely different than anything he had ever done, which again leads to the theory that Karla Homolka exacerbated his sadistic tendencies and his horrible impulse control. She escalated it to the point that he couldn't wait for his playmates, as Karla and Paul would call them, and he would just kidnap them instead of stalking them and attacking them near their homes. He basically broke from his usual methods. Now, when she was kidnapped, she was taken to their home in Port Dalhousie, where they filmed both of themselves raping her. After which she died from being strangled with an electric cord, a claim that Bernardo says is false. And this is where it gets tricky. He states that it was halcyon administered by Karla that killed Leslie. After she was already dead, they then dismembered her and encased her body parts in cement. Now, why would they do this? Well, obviously it's to deter police. It's a forensic countermeasure. It's not really a forensic countermeasure. It's a countermeasure they're using to make sure that the body cannot be found whole or identified. It makes it harder to identify it. And it also hides cause of death. So either one could be true. It could have been the halcyon or it could have been the strangling. There's also a victim impact statement that is linked in my presentation here. Well, if I can get this to work here. Let me see. That's unfortunate. The link to this victim impact statement is no longer available, unfortunately. But I'm sure you could just Google it or whatever. Okay, then we're going to talk about Kristen French. Kristen French was kidnapped. Again, this is another kidnapping, which they've now moved on to a new method. And these are young women. They're no longer the adults that he started out with. Kristen French was kidnapped from St. Catharines at the age of 15 by Karla Homolka and Paul Bernardo under the basis that they needed directions. She was presented as a plaything, again they use this terminology, to Paul. Now, the couple then raped and tortured Kristen and filmed it. This video was later used against Paul in his trial. Kristen was buried at Pleasant View Memorial Gardens. There's another impact statement. This one actually works. Okay, you can check the link to, it should be under Impact of Death 2. And it'll show Donna French's victim impact statement for her daughter's death. It should also Yep, it has all 4 pages. So the entire victim impact statement is here. This is not an abstract. This is not a paraphrase. All of it is here. So if you'd like to read it, please go ahead. Here we go. Last 2 slides here. Okay, how are they caught? And most people don't believe how some of these serial rapists and serial murderers are caught in such strange circumstances. For Paul, he was interviewed by detectives in 1991, 2 years before he was found to be the Scarborough rapist. He denied having any involvement and even gave blood and hair samples to the investigators. 26 months, 2 years, 2 months later, they were notified that his DNA was a match to that of a crime scene, and he was revealed to be the Scarborough rapist once and for all. Meaning that he essentially turned himself in by giving DNA. But during these 2 years, he was still able to attack more women. Karla was also interviewed about Paul's involvement in the murders, and she denied everything. She did, however, tell the entire story to her family, who has said nothing about it to anyone. Now, Paul's shell was not so hard to crack, whereas he admitted to all of the rapes and then turned on Karla, implicating her in the murders. Karla decided that she would then call her lawyer and become a witness against Paul, which worked out in her favor during the trial. She testified that the murders were all Paul's ideas and doing. Both received charges, but Karla's were scandalously lenient, where Paul received multiple murder charges and Karla, who participated in some of the rapes, only received a charge for manslaughter. Paul is still in prison, and Karla has since been released. Now, Karla did face consequences, but not the ones she should have. And I think that's all I'm going to do now. Thanks for watching.